I have been writing since before I could physically hold a pencil in my hands. I would sit on my parents' bed and tell my dad what to write, and he would type it up for me. I then got promoted to crayons, and then pencils, and then my computer, which is thankfully what I use today. And I've always had these weird, crafty phases, like a cardboard phase, a duct tape phase, a hot glue phase and super glue phase, a costume phase, and even a tying phase, where I would tie as many things together as tight as possible and hope for the best when the knot had to come undone. But I think a common misconception of creativity is that creativity equals craftiness, or that to be creative, you have to be good with your hands. Today I want to pull us away from this stereotype and talk about the real importance of creativity and why it needs to be a priority in education systems across the nation. So let's dive into the science real quick. There is a biological difference between creative brains and non-creative brains, but over dozens of studies, this difference is really hard to pin down. I'm sure we've all heard that creativity is based in the right sides of our brains, and the left sides are dedicated to logic and reasoning. But this suggests that creativity and logic are opposite things. I believe they are designed to coexist. Consider this quote by Bradley Wojtek, who has a PhD in neuroscience. Imagine asking, where is video located in my computer? Well, that doesn't make any sense. Your monitor is required to see the video. Your graphics card is required to render the video. Your software is required to, to generate the code for the video. But the video isn't located anywhere in the computer. In terms of creativity, creativity does not inhabit one part of our brains. Instead, it lives and breathes constantly. So then, who are the people who are most creative? I'm sure we can all think of a few political activists or celebrities pretty quickly. Let's think of maybe Malala, who used her talents to change the education systems in countless countries. Martin Luther King Jr., whose words changed the minds of an entire nation. Elon Musk, whose inquiries will be the future. And what did all of these people have in common? They were all ridiculously famous, but also their creativity wasn't crafty. They probably didn't sit on their bedroom floors and hot glue designs into the bottom of their mother's porcelain plates. Instead, they used their creativity in a different way. It allowed them to think differently. It allowed them a new approach to things they were passionate about. You might not think that creativity comes from these attributes, but these attributes come from creativity. It is scientifically proven that creativity improves your mental growth, your dedication, your mindset, and even your mood. It allows for new and spontaneous ideas. It allows real-world thinkers to tackle real-world subjects. Superpowers like these could save the world. Not just in a Superman catches car flying through the air kind of way, but in a linked hand-in-hand, brilliant minds can save the world kind of way. And where will these brilliant minds come from? Who will harness creativity like Captain Marvel harnessed the Tesseract? Us. Kids and teens. Which is why training and teaching students to be more creative in the classroom is vital for growth. I'm sure we can all remember the days when our teachers would teach us not with numbers on a whiteboard, but with food and soil and real examples. I learned my fractions by watching my teacher cut up a brownie. I learned what commas were when my teacher said one sentence in 5 different ways with commas in 5 different places. I never knew how much could be in the soil until my class went outside and we dug in the dirt. From a young age, we were taught in very engaging ways, and if a lesson wasn't engaging enough, it was a lot harder to learn from it. But eventually, students learned to take information from the teacher's plain words instead of those engaging examples, and we became devolved beings. The decrease in creativity can be shown in this study done by George Land when he tested 1,600 children on divergent and creative thinking. Children ages 4 to 5 years old tested an average of 98% out of 100. Now the same children took this same test, and in 5 years their scores were down to 30. Interesting. And when the children turned 15, they took the same test again, and their scores averaged 12. Now, the same test has been given to over 280,000 adults, and their scores average was 2. From 98% to 2. I think a lot of this is just how we age and mature. We learn to prioritize being right over being different. But I also think a part of this is schools. Not because they drain it out of us, but because teaching us to be more creative in the classroom is no longer a priority. But how? How can we possibly teach something that is so intangible and abstract? Well, today I'm going to give you one example that can hopefully lay the foundation of many other possibilities in the classroom. Let's say a room. Maybe this room is 30 feet wide, 20 feet long, and another 15 feet high. There are some couches in the back corner, a bookshelf, a desk, and a globe sitting on top. And what if we bring this room to math class? In math, we learn to plug and chug. We learn by the numbers, and sometimes we don't even know what we're doing. But what if we used a real-world application to finally understand what's going on? My teacher does a phenomenal job of this. We use those real-world applications to make the math tangible. Students could be asked to find the volume of the room, including or excluding the furniture. Pre-calculus students could find the angular displacement of the globe if it were to roll across the desk. Calc students could find the velocity of the globe if it were to fall off the desk, and the exact moment in time in which it would hit the ground. Geometry students could find the dimensions of the bookshelf, the desk, the chair, given just a few dimensions using theorems and proofs, and suddenly, the math does become tangible. And what about in English class? Sometimes in English, we're given a page number and maybe even a subject. But what if we used this room as a rubric in English? One student could write about a professor who maybe works in this room and has a horrible fear of globes. But to overcome her fears, she puts a globe right on the corner of her desk. One day, without her touching it, the globe moves. A mystery has begun. In civics, students could be asked how this class could best serve the community if it were given over to the government. Would it serve the community best to rent it out? Maybe to store and hide government secrets? To give it over to the homeless? And what about in history? How would this room look if it were a Greek courtroom? And what's the size comparison between this room and a room of a peasant living under the control of Assyria? What about Queen Victoria in the Victorian era? And what about science? How much helium would it take to lift this room up? Is it even possible? And if we were to fill this room with a bunch of people and spin it around and impose G-forces on them, would their heart rates accelerate or decelerate? And if you were to take the people out and fill it with gas again and freeze it, how much and how long would it take for the gas to sublimate? Would it even sublimate? I'm not here to criticize any part of the education system, but instead to encourage a greater emphasis on creativity in the classroom. As I said before, this room can be the foundation of endless possibilities. Minds can change, perspectives can alter, and the next generation of young thinkers will be ready to engage the world and know how to improve it. Malala will be joined by new, innovative thinkers ready for change. Martin Luther King Jr. will be a hero of a new era of advocates. Elon Musk will be joined by mathematicians, engineers, and scientists ready to build a future. Creativity isn't crafty. I still want to hide in the corner of my bedroom and write fantastical stories. I still want to make a dress out of duct tape. But the real value of my creativity doesn't come from my craftiness. Instead, it comes from my ability to make real change. Because creativity gives me empathy and world-mindedness, leadership and social skills, a drive to seek the unknown, all things I can't get from a roll of duct tape. Instead, creativity is a tool anyone can use and everyone can learn. So let's work together to bring our creativity scores back to 100%. Thank you.
Hmm.